Nyalche chenpo zato nyingmi shang, zonen manam chenpo, nyalche da, dankara darngam santo, sherma to, stumba tukje chanla ki shiom sar, nishan rawar zer ngi shangam sa, jawar tukji shanla yalanan, jime banzo shala soran, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Let's talk about the Shurangama Sutra. Before we begin discussing the Shurangama Sutra, let me say a few words to everyone. When we seek the Dharma, we should have a sense of how rare and precious it is. This is very important because nowadays, perhaps for many people, it is a very common concern. Obtaining the profound Dharma is surprisingly easy, whether we are diligently attending a spiritual lecture in person or conveniently accessing it through various other modern means. It truly feels especially effortless to receive the Dharma. Most people often develop this kind of habit that if something comes too easily or without much effort, they may not truly cherish it as much as they should, and won't feel that it is particularly rare or precious. As a direct result, during your entire process of learning and development, you may not take it very seriously. This kind of situation does occur. Therefore, reflecting on our beginnings at the Buddhist Academy, it's my personal conviction that the circumstances we faced, from our living conditions to the overall environment and every other conceivable aspect of our lives, were significantly and profoundly different compared to what exists now. Back then, when we first arrived, given our location, we had no roads and no electricity. To get anything we needed, we were forced to carry it on our backs, either from the nearest village, which was a strenuous 3 or 4 kilometers away, or from the county town, more than 20 kilometers away. As for electricity, there simply wasn't any. We had to rely on our own kerosene lamps and butter lamps to read our books like that. But in those days, I believe we were all extremely diligent. Everyone in my generation who was seeking the Dharma was especially dedicated and assiduous. We slept very little at night, and there was hardly any distraction during the day. But in terms of living conditions, it was almost like every day, if we could eat 3 meals, it was just a bit of sampa each time. Other than that, there were basically no vegetables. Nowadays, many people are picky. This isn't good. That doesn't smell nice. The taste isn't great, and so on. With this kind of attitude compared to back then, there really is quite a big difference. Because at that time, the conditions were also very limited. For example, even I would get up around 5 in the morning to boil some tea, then pour the tea into a thermos, and in the morning just eat a little champa, and that was enough. At noon I would drink half of it and then eat a bit more champa. Then in the evening I would drink whatever was left. We would only light a fire once a day. Because cow dung and tree branches were also very hard to find, we had to go up the mountain ourselves and carry them back from very far away. At that time, there was no electricity either. So resources were all very much limited. From what I personally saw, that particular period was exactly like this. From 1985 to 1990, there was absolutely no electricity or anything. We truly lived like that. But at that time, I truly feel that many of us were very diligent. Now, for many of us, perhaps the conditions are indeed better. So it truly seems to me that, in fact, many people actually don't really cherish the Dharma. Even when listening to teachings, the level of focus, some people might not fully understand, so they just seem quite absent-minded the whole time. I've heard that when some Dharma teachers give their lectures, it's often the same situation. People are whispering to each other below, or some individuals are even peacefully dozing off. If one truly and deeply cherishes the invaluable Dharma, understanding its profound significance, the mind would always be completely and utterly focused on the Dharma. All other behaviors and distractions would be entirely eliminated, but perhaps because our own wisdom is lacking, or our diligence is insufficient, or maybe our enthusiasm for the Dharma isn't strong enough. Some people are still doing fairly well, but some people really just treat listening to teachings as a way to simply pass the time. You could certainly put it that way. Just muddling through meals and classes, that's how it is. So in this regard, I still hope that everyone either stops studying and listening altogether. If you do listen, then you should approach everything with great seriousness. In this way, you develop a sense of reverence for the Dharma and also feel rejoicing in the footsteps of all the great masters who came before us. By doing so, within your own mind stream, you also receive a kind of blessing. This is just a brief introduction I wanted to give at the beginning. Today, regarding our ongoing and in-depth study of the profound Shurangama Sutra, the main topic will be the 7 places of seeking the mind, which will be discussed next. The 7 places of seeking the mind is some very famous and profound teachings. In fact, each and every method of seeking the mind is essentially a kind of deep investigation, a comprehensive way to search for the true nature of the mind. In Vajrayana Buddhism, we often talk about the origin and destination of the mind, or we diligently search for its true source, its enduring abiding place, and its ultimate final destination, the 3 places searching from these 3 aspects. But here perhaps we have a situation where the main and primary focus is on whether the mind is truly inside, outside, or in between, or whether it is in some other distinct place, and so on and so forth. This is the method of searching, this way of investigation. In fact, it is very similar to many profound and essential pith instructions found within the rich traditions of Vajrayana Buddhism. So therefore, I firmly believe that the Shurangama Sutra is actually a kind of Vajrayana text, one of the tantras in the Anuttara Yoga Tantra class. If others ask, why is it called the Shurangama Sutra and not the Shurangama Tantra? Actually, in that era, of very few scriptures that were translated in Han region, tantras were often translated as sutras. For example, the Manjushra's True Name Sutra. Originally, it was the Manjushra Illusory Net Tantra and the Vajrasattva Illusory Net Tantra. There are many such tantras. And in Tibetan, the Manjushra's True Name Sutra is actually also a kind of tantra. Then, for example, in Han region, people also pay very special attention to the profound Vajrashakara Sutra. In the context of Tibetan Buddhism, our precise translation is commonly referred to as the Vajrashakara Tantra. Indeed, it is also known as the Vajrashakara Tantra. There are many such tantric scriptures in Vajrayana Buddhism. Perhaps at that time in Han region, they were translated as sutra. There is another reason, actually regarding our Shurangama Sutra. It should have been in the early 8th century, roughly. When we looked at it approximately the other day, it was after the year 700 CE. At that time, it was translated into Chinese by Pramiti. It was brought here in a very secretive manner. This is a rather similar historical situation. You may have seen what we translated before in the history of Tibetan esoteric Buddhism, which also mentions Vairocana. Vairocana, at that specific time as well, during the reign of the great king Trisong Detsen, went to India to study and to learn about translation. While learning translation, at that time, near the Vajra seat in India, there was someone named Huaje Sangye. Huaje Sangye was a truly remarkable and exceptional master of mantras. When listening to the Dharma in his presence, he was truly inspiring. He told Vairocana, he said, "It would be best for you during the day to go to other panditas and diligently study the profound teachings of cause and effect from the exoteric tradition. At night, you can come to me to seek the unsurpassed esoteric teachings." Otherwise, here in India, the king places great importance on profound and esoteric teachings, which are often considered mystical and deeply spiritual, and such profound esoteric teachings cannot be transmitted to outsiders. If they discover that we are transmitting them externally, I too will be punished for it. And as for you, being a foreign student, it will be even more likely that you will face difficulties when trying to leave the country. At that time, Vairocana also described it in this particular way in his biography. During his time in India, he would spend his days before various learned panditas, scholars, and revered teachers, seeking teachings on the path of characteristics. That is, he received many teachings from the exoteric tradition. Then, at night, he would go to accomplished masters, mainly Huaje Sangye and others, the great accomplished masters of that time, the Vidyadharas of the Vajrayana, from whom he received many teachings on the mind section of the unsurpassed secret teachings. Later, he wanted to translate these especially precious 18 profound heart essence teachings from India into Tibetan and bring them to Tibet. But when it came to bringing them to Tibet, the masters, such as Hwaje Sangye, told him, if you try to bring them like this, there is simply no way you can succeed. So it would be best for you to use silk cloth and write on it with the milk of a white goat. After you finish writing, take it with you. When the time just comes, then use a special kind of incense to fumigate it. At that time, its original words can be shown on the way, apart from the silk cloth itself. No one will be able to see anything at all. Later, Vairotsana used this method, and at that time he brought the 18 sections, which are now fully included within the sacred and extensive Nyingma Tantras. The 18 Tantras of Vairotsana are mainly related to the mind section. As we know, we have the mind section, the space section, and the unsurpassed heart essence. Among these, regarding the mind section, at that time, Vairotsana indeed translated many significant texts. Originally, at the very early stages of the early translations, there was also Tonmi Sambota who also did some translations, about 21 kinds of Dharma methods then. But later, Vairotsana, these mind section teachings from India, he wrote them on silk with great care, and then just like Paramita, he's carefully concealing it in his right arm. He brought it up. There were many different kinds of bad omens, you could say, because the Indian Vajra seat and the iron doors of many halls natural spread. Then everyone started talking about it. They did not fully comprehend the precise details of what was happening, only that numerous occurrences had appeared which were broadly interpreted as highly ill-fated omens for India. At that time, at that particular time, many truly bad omens appeared. It was only later that people realized that Vairotsana had brought many profound Indian esoteric teachings to Tibet. Subsequently, they also utilized various effective methods to deal with Vairochana. The Indians also did all sorts of things. And at that time, the Tibetans also did various things. In the end, perhaps Vairochana too moved to Gamotsawarong at that time. There are also many fascinating stories about this. So during our ongoing process of investigation, it's quite possible that the Shurangama Sutra, which emerged around the 8th century, it should be said that it is a kind of profound and intricate esoteric teaching. But at that time in India, this knowledge was indeed meticulously and deliberately kept secret. Otherwise, Banlamiti was unable to leave the country after 2 attempts. On the 3rd attempt, this method was used. This was also one of his methods. It was like this. Also, I saw Zixuan's viewpoint. Shurangama Sutra is actually an empowerment scripture from the Nalanda monastery. It belongs to the empowerment section, that is to say, specifically within the esoteric section. Now, in the Taisho Tripitaka, it is also considered to belong to the esoteric school. Moreover, in our sacred Shurangama Sutra, there are actually many sections that talk about sacred mandalas and powerful mantras. Some parts are very similar to the profound content of the esoteric school. So it should actually be said that it encompasses many esoteric instructions, in fact, as well as some of those esoteric accomplishments related to mantras. If one attains accomplishment in mantras through the Shurangama mantra, there are also many stories about this. In the biographies of eminent monks of the Song dynasty, there was a Chan master named Chong Hui, who in the past relied on another Chan master, and in his presence obtained the great Buddha crowned Shurangama Samadhi mantra, the Shurangama mantra. Later, after he obtained this powerful mantra, he practiced alone on the mountain continuously and diligently. He practiced for a very long period of time. Later, in some sacred temples, he also diligently specialized in practicing this profound mantra. Then a benevolent celestial being came to respectfully request something of him, saying, "Now the sacred Dharma is in a state of great decline and has encountered many crises. Could you please come down from the mountain and begin to widely spread the true Dharma and effectively subdue other non-Buddhist paths?" That was the earnest request made to him at that time. Later, he descended the mountain and stayed as a guest at a temple in a city. While he was staying there, At that time, some heretics from other religions displayed all sorts of miraculous and astonishing powers. They possessed their own distinct and formidable supernatural abilities and also wielded their own spiritual powers. They even had incredibly tall ladders, which were made entirely of very sharp, gleaming blades. They could walk up these blades continuously and so on. They performed all kinds of feats like this. Whoever possessed such remarkable abilities would inevitably begin to compete with one another, engaging in debates of this particular sort. They began to demonstrate their powers as a form of debate. At this time, Master Chonghui also made a ladder out of sharp blades himself, which was 100 feet taller than that of the heretics. Then he carefully climbed the wooden ladder barefoot, as if he were walking on perfectly flat ground without suffering any injury at all, not even the slightest scratch. He could effortlessly go up and down the ladder just like that, with remarkable ease. Later, in front of other curious heretics, he demonstrated this incredible feat. For example, he would routinely eat tough iron leaves and various other pieces of solid iron. He would also boldly put his bare hand into a dangerously boiling cauldron and fearlessly walk freely on intensely hot fire, bravely enduring both the scalding boiling water and the fierce flames, thereby demonstrating all sorts of truly astonishing supernatural powers. Because of this, which should have been during the Tang dynasty, even the king at that time bestowed upon him a purple kasaya and gave him the title of Master of the Tripitaka who subdues demons and protects the nation. He was honored with the name Master of the Tripitaka who protects the nation. Afterwards, people called him the demon-subduing master. There is such a saying. So, looking at the Shurangama Sutra from a historical perspective, it is quite similar to those in our Tibetan tradition who have truly attained profound realization through the dedicated and rigorous practice of esoteric spiritual teachings. In Tibet, for example, reciting mantras, sometimes after reciting mantras, just like the 25 great disciples of Guru Padmasambhava, some of them gained mastery over the four elements, and some, through mantras, were able to subdue non-Buddhist practitioners with great ease. As for Mipham Rinpoche, in his prayer for spread of Nyingma tradition, he spoke a lot about this aspect, highlighting the unique characteristics of our Nyingma tradition. Therefore, the Shurangama Sutra, it should be said, everyone should know that on one hand we can say it is a kind of exoteric scripture as transmitted in the Han tradition and can be understood as such a particularly supreme sutra. On the other hand, although we do not have much significance in the rich history of Han Buddhism, requirements such as receiving empowerment or diligently practicing preliminary practices, but in fact the profound principles discussed within it should include direct pointing to the nature of mind, or in other words, some direct methods for recognizing one's true nature. Such profound methods can also be readily found throughout the extensive Shurangama Sutra. Therefore, in the ongoing process of our understanding, it should be recognized that there are many Vajrayana teachings contained within it. I think that if many of us, if you do not know very much about Tibetan Buddhism, then you should first diligently study the Vimalakirti Sutra, then study the Shurangama Sutra, study the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch again. At this point, you basically understand the fundamental concepts and principles. The essence of the self-nature bright Tathagata Garbha, what is it like? At that time, you look further. In Tibetan Buddhism, for example, the luminous essence or the great perfection, and some other teachings on the supreme secret teachings. At this point, it should be said that it is very, you could say, not only do they complement each other, but in some respects, certain principles may be expressed even more clearly and with more practical instructions. In the profound tantras and detailed pith instructions of Tibetan Buddhism, perhaps it can be truly said that if not, even if you haven't discovered it, I think there definitely won't be any conflict or any potential contradictions. Therefore, in the profound process of listening and deeply contemplating, everyone should endeavor to adopt and accept these invaluable teachings with a very open mindset. These are teachings that you may not have known before. Otherwise, it is quite possible that each of us might have developed and maintained our own unique traditions and distinct histories, including the inherent constraints and specific limitations of our own local cultures. We only acknowledge our own established perspectives and do not readily accept those new ideas that we have not previously encountered or considered. In fact, this is also a significant and regrettable loss for us. We should diligently use truly impartial and profoundly correct wisdom to thoughtfully accept with genuinely unbiased and discerning wisdom those invaluable teachings and sacred scriptures that are demonstrably beneficial and advantageous for us. I believe that a lot of people, whether in their practical endeavors or in their academic study and deep contemplation, all of these aspects are truly helpful. I may have just said that before. If you really can't keep up after a while, our Shurangama Sutra, which I talked about some time ago, specifically detailed how the Venerable Ananda, a prominent and revered disciple, encountered Madana, suffered some minor setbacks along the way, unfortunately. Later, the Buddha sent Manjushri Bodhisattva to bring Ananda back. After bringing him back, Ananda felt a bit ashamed, but the Buddha did not criticize him directly or say much about it. Immediately after, the Buddha asked, "Why did you become a monk in my teachings? Allow me to briefly recall what we extensively covered in the previous class." At this very particular point, the Buddha asked Ananda, "Why did you become a monk in my teachings?" Ananda could be considered a member of the appearance association, so to speak. He simply said, "Because I saw how dignified and majestic the Buddha was, that's why I wanted to become a monk." He didn't have any other motivation like renunciation or bodhicitta. Nothing at all, just that the Buddha looked very good and quite serene indeed. Such a dignified appearance was not something that came from other actions, but should have been achieved through one's own cultivation. So that's why, within your teachings, I'm willing to become a monk. Then, at this point, the Buddha immediately asked again, "If I am so dignified and majestic, how do you truly know that?" He replied, "With my mind's eye, my mind, and my eyes. My eyes clearly see it, and my mind inherently knows it." That's precisely what he said. Then the Buddha immediately asked again, "So where precisely is this mind's eye of yours truly located within your own brain?" Ananda said, "The mind should be inside one's own body. Just like Buddha, your mind is inside your body, and you possess your truly noble and elevated mind. The eyes are also prominently featured on this physical form, much like your beautiful lotus-like eyes, which are gracefully positioned on your exceedingly dignified and majestic body." That was precisely how he answered the question. Then, immediately right after that, we come to the specific content we are discussing here today. So where exactly is it located? At this particular moment in time, the Buddha, with his profound wisdom, said to his disciple Ananda, "You are now sitting within this very lecture hall. You are truly sitting in the sacred and revered lecture hall of the Tathagata. In that case, let us now look at the Jetavana monastery, specifically the Jetavana Grove. The Jetavana Grove was at that time a park belonging to Prince Jeta. So where exactly are we now?" He asked this in preparation for the next important question, so that he could go much further and inquire about it, if you truly want to ask about it, actually. As we will discuss in detail next, there are indeed 7 aspects that we need to consider, the 7 places to search for the mind. There are 7 key points for effectively searching for the true mind. This is also quite famous and well known in history. Many great masters and profound thinkers, when you are in the process of searching for the mind, you will also come across this. When some great masters introduce it, they say it is a layered teaching. Some truly great masters, including the esteemed Master Zhenjian, whom we previously mentioned and discussed earlier, Master Zhenjian's profound view, in fact, is that every single question presented here arises from Ananda's attachments, and the Buddha responds to each attachment by breaking it down. Wherever there's attachment, he dispels it. In other words, it doesn't necessarily mean that there are only 7. Actually, within this, many different issues are included, and continuously, Ananda keeps asking further questions, and the Buddha keeps dispelling them one by one. In this way, by the very end, it becomes extremely complete. This is a key method for seeking the mind and understanding its true nature, or you could say this kind of approach. There are also such explanations. No matter what, at that time, the Buddha asked Venerable Ananda, "Now you are sitting in the Tathagata's lecture hall." Then, in that particular instance, he respectfully asked him, "Where exactly is the renowned Jetavana Grove?" At that precise moment, the Venerable Ananda replied, "This is the pure lecture hall with multiple pavilions." Because at that time they were living in a very pure place, and its name was the Pure Lecture Hall with multiple pavilions. He said, "This Pure Lecture Hall with multiple pavilions is actually located within our Anathapindada's Park. Anathapindada's Park is a large and expansive grove, a very, very vast grove." Now, Jetavana Grove is actually outside, or you could say it should be outside. At that time, this monastery, this lecture hall, was located inside Anathapindada's Park. Whether from within Anathapindada's Park or from just outside our lecture hall, that is, the renowned Jetavana Grove, the expansive Jetavana forest, was situated just outside. At this precise moment, the Buddha immediately asked his devoted disciple Ananda, "Ananda, now that you are carefully looking at this grand lecture hall, when you are physically present within the lecture hall, what is the very first thing that you clearly see? Aren't you currently staying inside the lecture hall? If you are staying inside the lecture hall, what exactly do you see first?" He asked in this way. When asked like this, Ananda replied, "When I am in this lecture hall, I first see the Tathagata, because the Tathagata is on the Dharma seat, which is certainly quite prominent and also has a very dignified and majestic appearance. So I first see the Tathagata. Then what do I see next? I see the assembly. Then, when I look further outward at that particular time, their lecture hall was probably just like some of our modern lecture halls today, much like the ones we see around us, with all the windows and doors completely open. So when looking outside, one could clearly see the expansive forest and the beautiful gardens. Only then could you truly see the vast forest and the well-maintained gardens outside. So at that particular time, actually, I was deeply thinking about our current situation. If people in the world, for example, worldly people, encounter some teachers or masters at such times and have conversations like this with each other, they might not cherish it, nor would they reflect on minds, but the Buddha and Ananda were different. Every single question that he asked also inherently carried particularly significant and important meanings. If there are some truly great masters or eminent monks, then in their questions and answers that they posed during the session, there should actually be this kind of significance. Recently, we have been collecting His Holiness's, some of the previous ones, including audio and video, are all being meticulously organized and carefully collected together. During the entire process of collecting them, we specifically discovered that when the revered guru went to India in the past, or when he was in Tibet, there were often many questions others asked him, but the questions that were asked at the time, perhaps some of the questioners were just ordinary people. When His Holiness answered back then, some of the answers were extremely good, while some we felt were just average. That was precisely how it was at that particular time. But upon looking at them now, they truly possess a very profound and significant meaning. So we genuinely want to preserve absolutely everything from the revered guru, even if it's just a single verse or a short video. If we can preserve all of it, it should truly prove to be very valuable indeed for his lineage and their future disciples. This should gradually come to fruition over time. If our generation does not receive the benefit, then the next generation, or the one after that, will surely come to understand and embrace these profound concepts. For some revered gurus, their invaluable teachings and sacred transmissions are continuously propagated through dedicated disciples and devoted followers, and become more and more widespread and flourishing across various communities. In fact, in the previous life of His Holiness, when he was the Terton Master Lerab Lingpa, it is also explicitly mentioned in his biography that after the conclusion of this particular lifetime, in his subsequent and second incarnation, the profound teachings of the Dharma not only flourished with even greater intensity and spiritual depth, but also spread much wider across various regions and among a larger multitude of people. It prospered from Nepal all the way to the extensive Han regions. His propagation of the profound teachings was indeed extremely flourishing. In the colophon of one of his significant Terma texts, there is something like this precisely written, indeed in this lifetime of His Holiness. It's not just Nepal, perhaps even more so in places such as India and many other regions across the world. Or whether it's the mainland or the West, in so many places people place great importance on this matter. Among the lineage disciples, it is highly valued. When His Holiness was still alive, there were certainly many people with especially strong faith at that particular time, but now, among the later disciples, perhaps even more so indeed. There is strong faith in His Holiness's lineage. So I think that we, as lineage disciples ourselves, should indeed consider in the future, we should repay the Guru's kindness and the kindness of the Dharma. It's also necessary for us to make efforts in this regard. That's why, very recently, we've also been diligently working on the Guru's audio and video recordings. I've noticed that many of them also include Q&A sessions. In these Q&As, there are actually questions and doubts from sentient beings. When it comes to these doubts from sentient beings, it's not just the doubt of a single being, but the doubts of many beings. So when answering, he is not only responding to that one being specifically. In fact, many sentient beings are able to resolve their profound doubts through this process. They consequently gain new and valuable wisdom. So the act of dispelling doubts is also extremely important and crucial. It may seem to us that the exchanges between Ananda and the Buddha are just personal conversations between the two of them. But that's actually not the case, because Ananda was asking on behalf of many sentient beings. And the Buddha, when he thoughtfully answered, his primary purpose in answering was not just to make Ananda happy in that moment and then not care about the rest. That's not how it is. Now, more than 2,500 years later, we rely on the questions and answers between Ananda and the Buddha. And many sentient beings are also able to recognize their own true nature. This is also one of the fundamental aspects of their existence. Inconceivable and profound methods within the teachings of Buddhism for effectively taming and guiding all sentient beings. Just now, when Ananda answered earlier, wasn't it that the Buddha said, "Ananda, in this lecture hall, what did you see first?" And Ananda replied, "In the lecture hall, I first saw the revered and enlightened Tathagata, the Buddha himself. Then I saw the assembly, and then I saw the outside." And if we were to use a metaphor here, actually, Ananda truly represents the very essence of the mind. When we carefully combine the profound metaphor with its deeper meaning presented below, then the revered Tathagata and the entire assembly gathered inside are used here as a metaphor for our internal organs, the intricate and fascinating things seen inside, and then the beautiful and expansive grove outside, the vast world outside, including the verdant grove and so on, the entire world outside, the world outside the body. This particular aspect can also be corresponded and understood in this specific way here, at this crucial point, first and foremost, because among his 7 questions and answers, the very first one is about the internal aspect, searching for one's own true mind from deep within. At this particular time, the Buddha then asked, because just now the Venerable Ananda answered, "I first clearly saw the Buddha, and then I saw the entire assembly, Manjushri Bodhisattva, and so on, and then saw the outside." At this time, the Buddha continued to ask, "Ananda, when you carefully and truly look at the beautiful grove, why is there seeing indeed? So you say you clearly saw the beautiful grove just outside. If you indeed saw the grove directly outside, what exactly did you rely upon to perceive it? With what specific method or instrument did you perceive the external environment? You are stating that it is this particular grove located outside. I initially observed the interior aspects and then subsequently became aware of the exterior surroundings. So, when you observed the exterior of the area, what exactly did you utilize to perceive this particular grove?" He did not specify how one might view the interior or the exterior of the area. He asked in this way at the time. When asked like this, Ananda replied, "World-honored one, this great lecture hall has its doors and windows wide open." He said that this lecture hall is actually who refers to the door, and you refers to the window. The doors and windows are all open. So in this lecture hall, the door is indeed open, and the lecture hall itself is also open. Our doors and windows are a bit cold during the winter season, so we cannot actually see each other now, can we? We also wrote on the door, "Close the door when you leave," or something, right? So now it's a little bit hot in the summer, so I would like to request that this door and window be opened. There is a little bit of cold now, so it is still not completely open. However, if there is clear and transparent glass, you can also clearly see the outside world and its surroundings. Our Venerable Ananda, he stated that he could clearly perceive. The fundamental reason why we are able to discern it is This door and window are open. If the doors and windows are open, then look at the forest outside. One can see clearly, see very clearly. I was actually thinking outside my retreat room over there, there's a really nice and expansive view, a truly beautiful sight to behold. I wanted to show you all a photo, but I have completely forgotten now, so I will definitely check again first thing tomorrow morning. You can see it from inside the window. So sometimes, if the natural scenery outside is truly very beautiful, it seems you absolutely cannot focus your mind during a peaceful retreat because the outside is too attractive. So your mind keeps focusing on the outside. In the future, a dedicated and peaceful place for retreat should definitely be built. The retreat room should be constructed somewhere not so scenic or distracting, a place where the scenery isn't too beautiful. I think that's better. Otherwise, if it's too beautiful, it's a bit... So about this place, didn't he mention before that if you open the windows and doors, you can see far into the distance, you get a distant view. And as for this place, didn't we have a section earlier? Let's just add that in right here. Earlier, we roughly, maybe your page numbers are slightly different. That day, we just said some great masters believe it should be here. At that time, the world-honored one extended his golden arm among the assembly. Right at that precise spot, the Venerable Ananda had indicated that it was possible to clearly see it from the outside. Therefore, I was able to observe the exterior view from my position inside the window. At this very moment, the world-honored Buddha was present among the assembled multitude. He gracefully extended his radiant golden arm and then gently placed his hand upon Ananda's head. He then thoughtfully addressed both Ananda and the entire assembly gathered there at that significant time. What did he say? There is samadhi, there is a kind of meditative concentration. There is samatha. What is samadhi truly like? Its profound and sacred name is the great Buddha's crowned Shurangama king. There is a meditative concentration, and the name of this concentration is called the great Buddha's crowned Shurangama king. Moreover, this profound and all-encompassing meditative concentration encompasses all the 6 perfections and myriad practices of the bodhisattvas. In fact, this meditative concentration covers the east, south, west, north, the 4 directions, the 4 corners, above and below. The Tathagatas of the 10 directions, the Buddhas of the 3 times, the Tathagatas of the 10 directions through a single gateway transcend onto the wondrous and adorned path. What he means is, in the Tibetan translation, it is rendered this way, that all the Tathagatas of the 10 directions, they all attain accomplishment through this very dignified gateway, achieving realization on this adorned path. In other words, this meditative concentration just mentioned is a very dignified gateway, or it is a very dignified and honorable path. By relying on this path, by relying on this gateway, it is a truly noble endeavor. One attains accomplishment, one attains the fruit of Buddhahood. In other words, the Buddhas of the past, present, and future across all 3 times universally rely on the profound and powerful samadhi of the Shurangama to achieve their complete and perfect spiritual realization and enlightenment. The great and significant gateway they pass through is also this very one, and the great and profound path they traverse is also this samadhi. So listen carefully and attentively, for I will now begin to explain it to you in detail. At this point, of course, some people may feel that it seems rather abrupt here, that it shouldn't be like this. That earlier on, actually this kind of view is unreasonable. Because as we mentioned earlier, generally speaking, the Shurangama Sutra, a very important and profound Buddhist scripture, after it was meticulously translated at that significant time, both Weikui and Zixuan held considerable and respected authority, allowing them to express their well-considered opinions. Zixuan then thoughtfully inquired, why is it that in this particular place the revered Buddha bestows such profound blessings upon Ananda? On one hand, the Tathagata did not mind nor criticize his previous mistakes, nor did he reproach him. Then, when it comes to this point, he still gives Ananda this a truly very special blessing. Then he begins to discuss the truly important content of the profound Shurangama Sutra. As for the precise reason for this, he thoughtfully gave 3 distinct explanations. Zixuan also mentioned 3 specific reasons. The very first reason is to genuinely comfort him, to truly help him not be afraid, because Ananda might still have a little bit of nervousness in his heart. There were some things that he always felt deeply guilty about. Although he did not actually break the precepts, he still felt a sense of unease. at that time. He also encountered various adverse conditions himself. And that's one aspect. The second aspect is to help him listen attentively and not forget. The third aspect is that the Buddha's answers are never false. He should accept them wholeheartedly. They are never false. His responses are completely and entirely correct. Because of these three significant reasons, at that particular time, the Buddha carefully explained this profound teaching to Ananda right here. After Ananda attentively heard this, all the worries and doubts he had before everything is naturally unraveled. I used to think that Buddha had always been kind to me. Now it seems like this matter is over. There's absolutely no problem. Then Ananda immediately bowed before the Buddha, humbly accepting the compassionate words of the Buddha and his profound teachings. He accepted it with great joy and a deep sense of spiritual fulfillment. This sacred moment is truly the place where this profound teaching begins. Now, this paragraph has been After bringing it back, we will begin our discussion below. After Ananda repeatedly bowed in front of the Buddha told Ananda, just as you said, you are currently situated within the spacious lecture hall where the doors and windows are wide open. Didn't you just mention that? The Buddha himself told Ananda, didn't you just say and reiterate that point? When your physical body is truly in the lecture hall, and if the doors and windows are wide open, then what can you see from afar? The Jetavana grove of Anathapindika outside. So in this way, he continued to ask, could there also be some sentient beings? Even though their physical bodies are present within the confines of this lecture hall, who might not truly perceive the Tathagata, but instead only observe the superficial outside. This particular way of answering really has a profound kind of Chan flavor, doesn't it? He did not directly answer the question, but said, didn't you just clearly state that if your physical body is indeed within this sacred Dharma hall, you specifically mentioned that you would first see me and then subsequently observe the entire assembly and then see the outside? So let me ask you this particular question. Is there another possible situation? For instance, if someone is currently in this very large lecture hall, but inside the hall, whether it's the Buddha or the assembly, they can't see anything at all and only truly see the world outside of themselves. Seeing the gardens outside very clearly, could there be such a situation? Then Ananda began to answer. Now, in the extensive and profound dialogue between Ananda and the Buddha, we might indeed go back and forth on this particular topic for quite a considerable while. So, as you follow along with this, you still need to pay very close and careful attention. During their questions and answers, we might also have moments of realization ourselves. This can happen at any given time. If you were asked to provide an answer, how exactly would you respond? Is it truly possible that you live within this very hall but are unable to see anything at all inside? While outside, like the breathtaking night view of Lerung and the majestic mountains and rugged rocks surrounding the area just outside Lerung, you can clearly see all of these incredible sights. Could there truly be such a profound possibility? Ananda profoundly represents someone from our contemporary world, a person who is completely a materialist in the worldly sense. He represents this kind of person. It's either yes or no, either going up or going down, either on the outside or on the inside of something. He is completely this type of person. That's exactly how people in our world are. When it comes to concepts like dependent origination, emptiness, or the law of cause and effect, if there are many things he doesn't understand, he becomes completely attached to one thing and is absolutely convinced that it must be that way. He is entirely this way, especially Ananda. He represents the Shravakayana, the realist school. The realist school places particular emphasis on material things. So generally speaking, it's different from the Yogacara school. In the Yogacara school, at least in many cases, everything is like a dream or an illusion. All phenomena are created by the mind. They have this kind of educational background. But Ananda is completely a representative of the Shravakayana. As a representative of the Shravakayana, he takes things exactly as they are. He doesn't think or interpret things on a deeper or higher level. He doesn't engage in such contemplation or explanation. So here as well, this is precisely why the Buddha chose Ananda as his principal questioner and attendant, and then have him answer. Actually, many of us ordinary beings are indeed quite similar to Ananda. We might even be inferior to Ananda. We never had the chance to follow the Buddha. We never had the opportunity to realize the non-self of persons. We never had the chance to hear as much and as broadly as Ananda did. Ananda was extremely learned and knowledgeable. He loved to study. Many of our Dharma friends are a bit better when listening to teachings or are a bit better when attending study sessions. But afterwards, many of our old habits still remain, including those of us who are Buddhists now. I still hope that even if we can't be as learned and knowledgeable as Ananda, at the very least, we should not spend every single day indulging in truly meaningless and trivial things within the confines of this fleeting worldly life. For the vast majority of people in today's modern society, a significant portion of our precious time, for instance, at our educational institute or workplace, I suggest that Buddhists should avoid watching Douyin, Kuaishu, and similar apps every day. Doing so is meaningless. Perhaps we shouldn't put it this way. But for the majority of people, individuals who do not possess deeply rooted values often find themselves spending their entire day making various faces and engaging in superficial behaviors, and then laughing at themselves. There's really nothing worth watching in that. In this case, we really should try to have a bit more depth. And if we have even a little spiritual cultivation, we'll see that many of these fleeting things are just simply ways to really kill time and waste time. They're meaningless. So it's best for us, especially as Buddhists, as for non-Buddhists, for ordinary people, they have all kinds of entertainment. And that's completely and absolutely fine. But as Buddhists, as some dedicated practitioners, we understand, all of us at Larang will soon be entering retreat for a period of time. I'm genuinely worried that some monastics spend every single day watching utterly meaningless things, especially for monastics. What is the purpose of your ordination, whether it's to see through worldly affairs or to study, reflect, and practice, if you are still indeed constantly, occasionally having some habitual tendencies arise? That's also possible, since ordinary people haven't completely eliminated them yet. But I think if, as a Buddhist, you are immersed in this kind of thing all day long, then it might just be a matter of formality. Your own mind, compared to some of those individuals who don't study Buddhism or who aren't ordained, might actually be even more likely, because some of them truly have very good practice and realization. There are some teachers we often encounter in our daily lives, and when we meet certain individuals, they truly like to read, they truly enjoy studying, and they are always eager to learn new things. And no matter what they are discussing, many of their discussions are valuable and profound, involving extensive research and exploring cutting-edge topics, whether it's about our vast world or about life itself and its many complexities, or even about the entire cycle of the 6 realms of samsara. If we go a bit deeper, including the realization of one's own mind nature, many people have indeed put in a certain amount of effort, and when you put in the effort, there are results as well. If there are indeed positive results at that particular point, he absolutely would not spend every single day indulging in something particularly boring or getting completely lost in a dazzling and overwhelming array of information. So I think as for Ananda, I believe he also serves as a representative here, just like many of us, even though he is not truly an ordinary person. But for people like us, ordinary beings, we often have many doubts and many wrong views. These wrong views, truly, the Shurangama Sutra is indeed a very important sharp tool for cutting off wrong views. It's a very important weapon. By relying on it, in our case, for example, when you first start studying the Shurangama Sutra, you might be a particularly scattered person, But after you finish studying it, at the very least, if it can cut off some of your discriminating thoughts, I think studying the Shurangama Sutra is still meaningful. Otherwise, if I don't have the complete lineage and just listen to teachings every single day, I really don't know what kind of effect that would have. So I think as Buddhists, sometimes we still need to not be too scattered in our thoughts and actions and not be too careless or negligent in our practice. We should always strive to have a certain level of mindfulness and diligence, use right understanding and mindfulness to sustain ourselves. I am a practitioner. Life is truly very short. In this brief and precious life, at the very least, whether in worldly or spiritual matters, I want to do something meaningful. And I often reflect on my own mind. Only in this way is it truly good. Otherwise, our mind, once it gets used to certain habits, is very hard to manage. The mind is like a particularly mischievous, playful, and energetic child. Once it gets accustomed to playing and interacting, when the parents try to bring the child back, he becomes very upset and keeps crying, refusing to come. Our mind is just like that. If you truly enjoy watching captivating television dramas every single day, and if you are constantly observing and immersed in worldly affairs and things, I think many of us Buddhists nowadays are also somewhat unsuccessful, or something along those lines. If you carefully look at their words and actions, you will see some of the lamas and nuns here at Larung have had all their mobile phones taken away. But I think if it's done in a forceful way, for some people it might not work. No matter how many times you confiscate them, it might not make a difference. I haven't required anyone to hand in their phones. But the reason for not making it mandatory is that I think everyone should have self-awareness and self-discipline. If you have self-discipline, even if your phone isn't taken away, some people still should truly know what kind of person they actually are. For some individuals, no matter how much you try to force them, it might simply not work. It's truly impossible to stand by your side all day to remind you. That's just not possible. So here, in this Q&A, Ananda is also representing this kind of situation. He asks, world-honored one, is there such a case where you can't see what's inside, but you can see what's outside? Is there such a situation? Ananda answered the Buddha, world-honored one, if I am in the hall and cannot see the Tathagata, but can see the forest and springs outside, that is impossible. If I'm truly inside the lecture hall and cannot see the Tathagata's dignified form, and I especially love to look at your dignified appearance, I won't even look at you. If I look outside, impossible things. He said that he could see forests and springs. Don't just look at the majestic figure that stands inside. Then consider looking outside. However, that approach is utterly pointless. There is absolutely no way such a thing could possibly happen. Ananda's answer to the question was relatively clear and straightforward. There can't be such a thing. At this time, the Buddha began, then the Buddha said, Ananda, then you are exactly the same. Your heart also knows everything clearly. This clear word, sayangripa, holds significant depth. In the Tibetan language, sa specifically means bright, luminous. Understanding is ripa. So then exactly what are the key characteristics of his heart exactly? One is its nature. Unlike the insentient things, which is characterized by darkness, it is a luminous mind, purely light, akin to the brilliant radiance of the sun or a lamp, which also possesses a natural inherent illumination. But what is another important feature of it? To understand clearly, to truly know what others are like, one of the key characteristics of the mind is clarity. We are clearly aware, or one is clarity and the other is awareness. This mind is both profoundly clear and fully aware. This is indeed the inherent characteristic of the mind of every sentient being. If it truly manifests this kind of mind that is completely aware, if it is indeed within the body, then at this precise time, it should first be able to fully and completely know all the intricate internal aspects of the entire body, the inner body itself. Because what kind of characteristic does the mind have? The mind has this, just like you, Ananda. Ananda, you have eyes and you truly have a mind. Therefore, you are indeed able to see inside. If you can't see inside at all and can only see outside, that's impossible. That wouldn't make sense indeed, would it? In the same way, the mind is the same. It is something aware and clear. If it were not aware and clear, if it were like other inanimate objects, then wherever it is, it might not be able to see anything else, nor see itself like that. The mind is aware, clear, clarity and awareness. Since it is clear and aware, if this mind is indeed inside the body itself, it would firstly see everything entirely inside the body, all of these things, all things contained within. If it is inside the body, then the mind couldn't possibly be inside, and yet see nothing at all. Ananda, if you were inside, you wouldn't be able to see anything. That's impossible, isn't it? But are there perhaps some sentient beings, are there indeed some sentient beings who first see what's inside their own bodies and then are able to observe external things? Is there truly such a situation? Here, he is asking a rhetorical question. Could it be that there really are some sentient beings who can first see all the internal organs inside their bodies and see all of these things clearly and distinctly, and then see the outside? Because according to Ananda, he would first see the people inside, the Buddha and so on, and then see the things outside. But actually, Ananda and the mind are the same in this regard. Both are aware and perceptive. If the mind really were inside the body, it would be just like you sitting inside. You first see the inside and then see the outside the same. So the mind should see the inside and then see the outside. But in reality, even if we can't, our actual situation is like this. Even if we cannot physically see this mind, whether it is the very heart deep inside, or the liver, the spleen, or the stomach, none of these internal organs can truly be seen with our eyes. These hidden, more secretive things, these internal organs can't be seen. And our nails, their continuous growth, hair growth, a natural process. There are also the intricate rotation of tendons, the rhythmic shaking of pulses, and so on. Logically speaking, it should be abundantly clear and evident indeed. But how can I not know why I don't know? If your heart, don't you think the heart is inside? If the heart is in it, just like Ananda is inside. I've truly seen it all, but what exactly is it actually? Not only can the mind not see our internal organs, if the mind were inside the organs, for example, inside the heart or inside the brain, then it should be able to see everything inside the brain, all the tens of billions of complex neural systems and their connections in the human brain. It should be able to see them all. If it is, as we often say, truly located deep inside our heart, then all the various internal organs within the entire body should, without exception, be clearly visible to it. But in reality, it not only doesn't see these, it doesn't even see things that are easy for us all to see, such as hair or fingernails, or even the meridians throughout the body. All these things which are generally easy to see, the mind has never seen any of them. If it were inside the body, no matter which part it was in, it should be able to see them. This kind of reasoning for many of us who have studied other treatises before may never have encountered it. Perhaps this is the first time we've come across it. Everyone should also. You will notice that his particular way of thinking about things is a little bit different from the norm. In the end, if it cannot know what is inside, how could it possibly know what is outside? The final conclusion is that this mind does not know any of the things inside the body, whether it's the 5 organs and 6 viscera or the meridians. It is unaware of all these things. So how could it know what is outside? If it truly cannot know what is inside, then how could it possibly know what is outside? Therefore, you should clearly understand, Ananda, you should truly understand the mind you speak of, which is so incredibly clear and truly aware, this clear and aware mind, residing in this body. In fact, it is simply not possible to achieve this. This particular scenario is genuinely not feasible or attainable. So in this specific regard, many of us, indeed the vast majority of people, might genuinely think that our conscious mind is located inside this physical body. For example, some contemporary modern scientists, they often truly believe that our human mind is primarily located within the confines of the brain. Including some of the things that we actually see with our very own eyes and perceive, they are transmitted through a kind of information, a kind of light information, then trigger a chemical reaction, and finally, through the brain, these are assembled into an image. And after the image is formed, it appears externally and can manifest in a very brief moment. This is how they see it. So they believe there is a mind inside the brain. But if there really were a conscious mind inside the brain, then all the other things inside the body, you should be able to see them as well. But since you can't see them, you can't say that. If we say, many of us in our daily lives might have this way of thinking most of the time. Master Uyi also said that this is a common problem among most sentient beings, which is regarding the mind as being located inside. And that's truly the case, isn't it? I've observed some Western individuals whose educational philosophy has consistently believed that this particular mind, this specific way of thinking, the primary thinker is located within the brain. When they speak, they very often tend to say, "Let me take a moment to carefully consider it," or something along those lines, and they will typically point to their brain and clearly state, "I am currently thinking." They've always believed this way. They always fixate their minds right here in this very moment. And then for many of us in the world, we might genuinely say, "Oh, I'm in a rather bad mood today." We feel quite uncomfortable inside and always tend to think that our mind is located in the heart area. Or, "I'm really happy today," and say, "In my innermost heart, it's truly such and such a wonderful and delightful thing," feeling exceptionally happy and genuinely delighted just like that. But in actual reality, if your true and authentic mind were actually inside your body, whether in the brain or indeed in any other vital part of your body, you should always truly be, because the mind itself is able to understand and comprehend. If we can understand clearly the interior of our body, why can't it truly understand? If it doesn't fully comprehend, then the very idea that the mind is entirely contained within the body is indeed unfounded. This is the first direct and significant point, isn't it? I originally wanted to finish talking about all 7 distinct kinds of seeking mind today, but perhaps there is simply no way to do so. Let me tell you a few more things, just a little bit more, to elaborate further on this subject. Then there is absolutely no more available space or time for any further discussion on this particular topic. It is impossible for the mind to exist inside. Next, let's talk about this particular matter. Then Ananda began to bow and respectfully speak. Venerable Ananda was still very much respectful, even though he continuously kept asking the Buddha. In his words, even after he failed, he didn't immediately feel uncomfortable or unhappy. He wasn't like that. He always remained in front of the Buddha, always speaking very respectfully. I have heard the Tathagata's Dharma teachings like this. I have heard what the Tathagata has already explained before, that the mind is not inside. This principle has already been explained. I have truly realized that my mind actually resides outside of my physical body. Now I fully understand this concept. There is nothing inside the body. So I am very clear now, it must be outside. But how is it outside? Why is that? He said. Just like a lamp, although it is burning inside a room, this lamp is certainly able to illuminate the room. And then through the door or window, and then the courtyard outside, it will gradually illuminate everything step by step. In the same way, all sentient beings also do not see inside their bodies. The mind inside the body is not seen. It is only seen outside the body. For all sentient beings, no one has ever seen inside their own body. No one has seen their internal organs. But as for the outside, everyone has seen it. So it is just like the light of a lamp. If this particular lamp is placed outside of the room, then it cannot adequately illuminate the entire inside of the room. So the meaning here is exceptionally clear. There is absolutely no doubt about it at all whatsoever. As for the Buddha's most ultimate and profound teachings, I have already fully and completely attained and understood them thoroughly. To attain no delusion means. If I say this, I'm not wrong, am I? The Buddha has explained this so well. Now I have discovered the Buddha's true hidden meaning. No one else can truly understand it. I know that using the analogy of the lamp, if the lamp is indeed outside, then it is clearly visible. Then of course it can't shine inside, can it? This shows that for each sentient being, no one has ever seen inside their own body, but everyone has seen the outside. Just now, when I opened the window, I could see the garden outside. So in this particular way, I have already successfully discovered the Buddha's hidden meaning. I truly understand it now. Wow, I am so very happy indeed. I am verily the foremost among the Buddha's lineage. I have truly and completely mastered all the profound and deep wisdom. Then Ananda was greatly and immensely overjoyed. At this very moment, the Buddha told Ananda, "You shouldn't be so arrogant." The Buddha, the enlightened one, said to his devoted disciple Ananda, "If the bhikkhus all together from the city Shravasti," he said, "Ananda, don't you be so anxious. You may not have fully understood yet, perhaps not grasping the complete picture. You know, my devoted followers, these venerable bhikkhus from Shravasti, they systematically go out to beg for alms in a very orderly manner. They go out to receive alms, to collect food offerings. Then they return to our Jadavana grove. Usually they walk first and then go out for alms, seeking their daily sustenance. After collecting alms, they return to their own monastery. After returning to the monastery, the monks dine together. And then after finishing their meal, they wash their bowls and wash their feet. This is the routine. So, look at my bhikkhus. They diligently go out for alms from Shravasti, and after receiving their sustenance and returning to the peaceful grove, they begin to make their offerings to those who are truly worthy. After the offering is completely finished, so think about it carefully and take a closer look. Among this group of bhikkhus, if only one bhikkhu eats very well and is completely satisfied, does that truly mean that every single one of them is full and has had enough to eat? Will all the other bhikkhus be full as well? Even Ananda wouldn't say so, and we would all probably say no. How is it that when the monks go out and then come back, and after they return, if one bhikkhu is full, how could it be that all the other bhikkhus are also full? That's impossible, isn't it? So Ananda immediately replied, "No, world-honored one, that's not possible." Why is that? Because although these bhikkhus are all arhats, and they are all truly remarkable indeed, their bodies and their lifespans are all different from one another. Each person's continuum is different. For example, whether it's Venerable Ananda or Venerable Kassapa or Moggallana, they all Given that each individual person is separate and distinct, in that case, if the Venerable Kassapa is completely full and satisfied, does that inherently mean that Purna is also entirely full and satisfied as well? That's impossible. They are, in fact, two entirely separate continuums. Of course, the Venerable Ananda emphatically denied this assertion. Since he denied it, the Buddha said to Ananda, "If you think that the mind which knows things is located outside the body, then both the body and the mind are directed outward, and both the body and the mind as two different continuums are outside. The body is outside and the mind is also outside." Didn't you just say the mind is outside? If the mind is outside, the body and mind are unrelated. The body's continuity is unknown to the mind, and the mind's continuity is unknown to the body. What is it like then? Then what the mind knows, the body cannot perceive. All these things that the mind knows, because the two are entirely separate entities. If they are completely separate entities, then what the mind knows, the body could never sense. And if perception is at the level of the body, then the mind simply cannot know it. If the body has sensations, if the body has experiences, if the body has feelings, then the mind would not know them. These two are basically just like Shariputra and Maudgalyayana just now, two different streams. If they are two different streams, Shariputra sees is not necessarily what Maudgalyayana sees. What Maudgalyayana sees, not necessarily what Shariputra sees. As for body and mind, both are outside. If both are outside, then they cannot communicate with each other at all, and there would be no connection. If that were the case, it would be impossible. So this is to tell him that there definitely isn't anything outside. If there were something outside, it should exist independently. But if it existed independently, then body and mind would have absolutely no relation to each other. But in reality, that's not how it is. The Buddha then immediately said, "Now I show you my cotton-like hand. When your eyes see it, does your mind make distinctions or not?" Then the Buddha said, "Let me stretch it out for you. This particular item of mine is exceptionally soft, a very delicate kind of cotton called duolo cotton. Duolo cotton is indeed a type of cotton. When the Buddha's hand gives blessings and grace, if we use our own hands to give blessings, it seems especially stiff and hard, almost unyielding to the touch. Back when I went to Same, at that significant time, the current Karmapa, along with a few of us who were fellow pilgrims together, then he gave me a blessing. And I was in considerable pain for quite a significant while. His hand was absolutely not like soft cotton at all. It was quite rough and unyielding. It actually hurt quite a bit. He just went pa-pa-pa like that. It was the same back when I was in Beijing with the 10th Panchen Lama, Master Panchen. He was like that too when he was at that temple in Beijing, which is called Yonghe Temple. When His Holiness went and stayed there, we together went to see Master Panchen, and he also, because he was also especially tall and strong, when he gave blessings and gently touched the very crown of the head, it was particularly and surprisingly painful. Maybe their hands could be as incredibly soft as cotton, but still our immediate feeling was that at the time it was rather hard and firm. Then the Buddha said, "I am showing you my hand, my wondrous hand. Your eyes can see it. But can your mind distinguish it?" Here, when he talks about body and mind, maybe it doesn't necessarily refer to the physical body, because according to the Abhidharma Kosha, the eye, ear, nose, and body faculties, these faculties, one is mental and the other 5 are physical. In the Abhidharma Kosha, in that case, the eye faculty actually truly represents the whole body. If the eyes see something, that is the body perceiving it. If the mind distinguishes it, then it is the mind making the distinction. So body and mind are two things. And if you use these two different streams as a compelling metaphor, it's actually quite interesting to consider. Here he says, "When I display this wondrous and truly magnificent hand, can you clearly see it? Can you distinctly distinguish it?" Then Ananda respectfully says, "Yes, world-honored one, yes, I can indeed clearly see it." Now Ananda is starting for the second time to perhaps not quite understand again. At this point, the Buddha tells Ananda, if you are aware of the appearance, if you can both see and touch it, or if your eyes can see it, if your mind can distinguish it, then both are mutually aware. If they are mutually aware, how be said to be outside? Didn't you say that it was outside? Those two, different yet sequential, cannot be aware. But now it's being explained that if you can both see and distinguish it, how could you just really say it's outside? Most of it should actually depend on your own mind and thoughts. Therefore, it is important for you to know and understand that the mind you speak of, the one that is truly aware and fully able to comprehend and know, this mind that you can clearly and distinctly know cannot possibly exist outside of the physical body. It truly does not exist outside the body either. If it were outside the body, then like two arhats, they would have nothing to do with each other, no connection at all. That would be correct. But when it comes to body and mind, it seems that from this perspective, it is not independently outside. If it were independently outside, then even the Buddha's wondrous and powerful hand could not possibly see it. Separation unexpected, a truly unforeseen event. But that's not actually the case. If you can truly see it and you genuinely want it, then it means it's not outside of you. He didn't say it was inside. If you're inside, there's no reason. But not outside of this. This core principle is specifically given to the Venerable Ananda. It has been explained with great clarity and precision. This represents the second method for diligently searching for the heart. So we ourselves and Ananda and Buddha inherently share a distinct and profound relationship. In the very process of our own speaking, when we teach the esoteric Dharma, we observe through the 5 poisons and the 5 kinds of wisdom. So now, is my mind truly outside or indeed inside? So this year, the profound teachings we are diligently passing on should be, within Buddhism, one of the deepest methods of realization. As for whether this can lead to realization, of course, if I, the one transmitting it, have not realized it, it's not certain that you, the listeners, will definitely realize it either. But sometimes you never know. Because if a blind person holds a lamp in their hand, others who have their sight can still clearly see the road ahead. This is also a very special and profound metaphor in Buddhism. So although there is the saying, the blind leading the blind, the Avatamsaka Sutra also contains this kind of example. If a blind person holds a lamp, some people can still see other forms. If a deaf person beats a drum, he himself cannot hear it, but others can still hear it. So I think these profound Dharma teachings, which all the great masters of India and Tibet have kept especially secret, the ones we are now transmitting, these particularly secret teachings, I have also transmitted them in the past, including some Dzogchen teachings from Tibetan Buddhism. And when they are translated into Chinese, even now, they are subject to a lot of criticism from many people, although it's not as if kings and ministers are announcing punishments. In reality, there are many different opinions from people. But no matter what, the Dharma belongs to all sentient beings. Therefore, in the course of my own lifetime, indeed, in this brief human existence, I have been learning and sharing these teachings with everyone as I go. At this particular moment in time, everyone should also, when many individuals have already received their very own rightful share, it is truly best not to lose your valuable and unique opportunity. For example, when we go to a grand banquet, if everyone gets a fair share, some people, even though you actually went because you were completely drunk at the time, or for some other reason, if you didn't get your share, wouldn't that be a bit of a pity, really? So at the very least, if others can genuinely and truly get their fair share, and you can also get yours, perhaps that is the best outcome. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye